Hey there. So last night something interesting transpired. Something changed. DC Comics, they had something to say on this whole mess that's been going on. They decided to sound off. Now, we are going to cover this via a Bleeding Cool article, but when looking at this, remember that Rich Johnston's hubris, or lack thereof, makes him take credit for everything. He's going to say that, hey, I caused this, Bleeding Cool caused this, but look at what's transpiring here and really look at the message. So mean-spirited tweets against company policy, DC Comics social media and press guidelines to comic creators, posted by Rich Johnston. Yesterday, DC Comics creator freelancers received a mass email covering their activities on social media. While I understand that this kind of thing has been an increasing concern in recent years, I understand that this is happening right now as a result of the actions and internal company employee reactions and concerns reported by Bleeding Cool over artist Ethan Van Sciver's social media activity. Concern has been expressed from the top, from President Dana Nelson down to fellow freelance creators. It is also time to preempt an upcoming BuzzFeed article on the matter, and some of the language used appear to be a direct reaction to our earlier article. We also note the don't talk to the press aspect. The email reads as follows: Dear DC talent community, the comic book industry is a very special creative community dedicated to telling epic and legendary stories of action, heroism, and intrigue with a rich and diverse portfolio of characters. Oh, I see right there. Rich saw the word and he thought it said Rich. He thought it meant Rich Johnston and diverse portfolio of characters. Continuing, both DC Comics as well as its extended family of freelance talent contribute to our success and are direct reflections of our company, characters, and comics. As such, DC expects that its employees and freelance talent community maintain a high level of professionalism as well as reasonable and respectful behavior while engaging in online activities. Comments that may be considered defamatory, libelous, discriminatory, harassing, hateful, or that incite violence are unacceptable and may result in civil or criminal action. Now, when it's said there, he's trying to frame this as something that's a response to Daryl Ayo. I would say that there are other people out there, Kurt Busiek, that would be affected by this as well, and that there have been plenty of complaints about the actions of certain people to DC Comics. Continuing, in addition, comments that may be considered insulting, cruel, rude, crass, and mean-spirited are against company policy and guidelines. That's very interesting. Haven't we been talking about company guidelines lately? Do you think that Bleeding Cool, do you think they're the reason that something like this would happen? Or do you think that customer reactions might be the reason something like this happens? Continuing, we ask and expect that you will help to create an online environment that is inclusive, supportive, and safe. Below, you will find the most current version of the company's social media guidelines. If you have any questions, please contact DC Talent Relations Department so that we can be of an assistance. DC Entertainment Social Media Guidelines for Talent. The policy has been developed to empower DC talent to participate in social media activities, represent their creative endeavors well, and share their passion for DC characters, stories, and brands. We recognize the vital importance of online social communities, and this policy reflects our commitment to the best possible use of social media. Below are DC's recommended guidelines when partaking in social media. Stay positive when you post, and we also recommend that you avoid negative comments in this very public forum. I wonder how many DC people actually stick to that. There's some big names, like, say, a Scott Schneider, do a really good job of that, Sean Gordon Murphy, and so on. You may want to refrain from engaging with individuals who may be speaking negatively about you, other talent, DC, our fans, and the comic industry, as this is a no-win situation. Now, that's an interesting comment there. You may want to refrain from that. Something that probably needs to be brought up jump to DC still, because that will be a use for block bots and whatnot. They will continue to do things like that because of clauses like this. If there has been a personal threat to you or those around you, then in addition to alerting DC, please involve the proper law enforcement authorities. Now that could definitely be in reaction to Ethan Van Sciver, because Ethan Van Sciver has indeed been getting real legitimate threats. Use good judgment when posting, reposting, and liking comments, photos, and videos, as these may have unintended consequences. Talent should take care when using social media to ensure that comments and postings made by you are not associated with DC. Now that is an interesting thing, because how do you unassociate yourself with DC when you make comments? You know, like I've said about Kurt Busiek, for example, his name, I mean, really, how do I search out another Kurt Busiek? How are these comments not associated with DC? DC, they're going to have to tell these people to actually involve fans and be nice about things, or it's simply, this kind of stuff still will not work. Under all circumstances, please indicate that you do work for DC, but that your comments are your own and do not reflect those of the company. Now that, it simply is still not going to fly with that. The internet is permanent regardless of privacy settings or other limits you may try to post or you try to place on your posting. Think before you post, comment, retweet, or like something. Do not reveal plot points, storylines, or launch timing, including photos or videos of in-progress assets, artwork, story outlines, scripts, panels, announcement details, etc., without coordinating with DC publicity. Members of the press may follow you on social media, and your posts can and probably will become news. And don't break news on social media. If you have any questions on what you can or can't post on any platform, DC Publicity or Talent Relations Department are available to assist. If you'd like to share DC news on your social pages, we recommend sharing news from DCComics.com, DCE-sanctioned social media pages, and other news widely reported on credible news outlets. That's interesting. I wonder if Bleeding Cool, they consider themselves credible news. You know, I think they make a comment about being credible or non-credible, but do you think they actually consider themselves credible news? Continuing, if you are contacted by members of the press or asked to participate in an interview about your work for DC, please coordinate this with the DC Publicity Department so that news can be rolled out in an orchestrated fashion and elevated on DC digital and social channels as well. And finally, we recognize that there can be a dark side to social media, and to that end, if you feel you're being harassed or bullied through social media channels because of your work for DC or your association with us, please feel free to contact DC Talent Relations Department so we can be of assistance. I hope that Ethan Van Sciver contacts that. But you know what's going to happen with that. Someone like a Mags Visaggio is going to say that they are being bullied because of this. You know who's not going to be taken into account by some of these statements here? We are not going to be taken into account because of these. We are still part of this chain, and unless the other portions at the beginning of this, unless those are taken into account, then a lot of this won't matter. I also expect that Bleeding Cool may not fall under the credible news outlets definition, especially since we are sharing these guidelines. See, Rich Johnston, he thinks that he's a news breaker, you know, he's a news maker. He thinks he is something big time there. It's pretty funny. He thinks he's this bad boy in news. It's almost hilarious. Look at him poking up from the bottom. Let's watch him pop up. Ooh, look at that. Anyway, continuing. I'd be very interested to hear DC freelancers' reaction to these guidelines, though based on the above, you may need to keep them anonymous. I promise not to use what anyone tells us without their explicit permission, and to never reveal a source. That's garbage, by the way. He will not. However, if you do want to talk to somebody, you want somebody that will actually keep what you say a secret, talk to me, then we can do that. Heck, write me anonymously. We can post something like that. We can do whatever you want there. We can just kind of break it down. We can post it. We can talk about it. Just whatever you want to do there. So anyway, I think this is interesting because something has triggered this discussion. Now, do you think it's the Ethan Van Sciver situation? Do you think that fans bringing up different things, including guidelines, do you think that this has triggered something internally at DC? It's a very interesting thing to see, and it tells you that some of the stuff that's been transpiring, that it is being noticed. Now, what is being noticed? That's a good question. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here. We'll probably maybe see some more of this as it's coming up, but I'm interested in seeing exactly how the talent there, how they fall in line. All right.